Psychology of mortality. The psychology of mortality investigates how humans understand and react to the inevitability of death. Death awareness can evoke fear, influence behaviors, and initiate profound emotional responses. Psychologists have long studied how thoughts of mortality affect mental health, social relationships, and personal growth, providing insights into why we fear death and how we cope with loss. Fear of death and thanatophobia. Thanatophobia, or the fear of death, is a common existential anxiety that can vary in intensity and impact. It includes both fear of one's own death and fear of the death of loved ones, and it is influenced by age, personality, cultural background, and personal experiences. Roots of death anxiety. Death anxiety is rooted in the human instinct for self-preservation, a deep-seated fear of the unknown, and the disruption of social bonds. From an evolutionary perspective, fear of death is adaptive, as it drives behaviors that ensure survival. However, in modern life, this fear can manifest as existential dread, the fear of the unknown, or anxiety about non-existence. Thanatophobia. In psychology, thanatophobia can affect individuals in various ways, from mild unease to severe, debilitating anxiety. In extreme cases, it can lead to avoidance behaviors, such as avoiding medical checkups, avoiding conversations about death, or avoiding places associated with mortality, like hospitals or cemeteries. Those with severe death anxiety might also develop related phobias, such as hypochondria or a fear of aging. Age and developmental perspectives. Death anxiety is often more pronounced in adolescence and middle age, while it tends to decrease in older adults. Adolescents and young adults are beginning to understand their mortality, often leading to heightened anxiety. Middle-aged adults may fear death due to responsibilities, family obligations, or unfulfilled life goals. In older adults, studies show a decrease in death anxiety, possibly due to acceptance of mortality, a sense of life satisfaction, or coping strategies developed over a lifetime. Coping mechanisms. People cope with death anxiety through various strategies. Religious beliefs and spirituality often provide comfort, as they offer perspectives on an afterlife or rebirth. Psychotherapy approaches, such as cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT), can help individuals manage death anxiety by challenging irrational thoughts and developing healthier outlooks on life and death. Other approaches, like existential therapy, encourage clients to confront their fears directly and create meaning in their lives. Fear of death, while natural, can be debilitating when it becomes pervasive. Understanding its psychological roots helps individuals and therapists manage this fear, turning it from a source of paralysis into a motivation for purposeful living. How awareness of mortality shapes behavior. The awareness of mortality has a profound effect on behavior, influencing everything from social interactions to career choices. This concept, known as mortality salience, describes how heightened awareness of death influences decision-making, relationships, and personal values. Terror management theory (TMT). Terror management theory (TMT), developed by psychologists Sheldon Solomon, Jeff Greenberg, and Tom Pashinsky, suggests that awareness of death motivates individuals to seek meaning and security through cultural worldviews and personal achievements. According to TMT, people cope with mortality by aligning themselves with values, ideologies, or social groups that promise symbolic immortality, such as religion, legacy building, or cultural values. Impact on social behavior. Mortality salience can increase behaviors that reinforce self-esteem and social bonds. Studies have shown that when people are reminded of their mortality, they tend to be more charitable to others, more respectful of social norms, and more supportive of their cultural beliefs. Mortality awareness also leads to increased tribalism, as people may cling more strongly to their in-group and express distrust toward those who threaten their worldview. Personal goals and legacy building. Awareness of mortality often drives people to set meaningful goals, prioritize personal achievements, and consider their legacy. Many people respond to death awareness by pursuing activities that offer a sense of continuity or contribution to something larger than themselves. This might include raising children, contributing to societal causes, or creating art, literature, or other lasting works. Relationships and family life. Mortality awareness can influence individuals to strengthen bonds with loved ones, fostering relationships that bring comfort, stability, and support. As people age and experience the loss of friends and family, relationships often take on greater significance. Studies have shown that people with a high awareness of mortality are often more compassionate, patient, and willing to prioritize time with family and friends over material pursuits. Awareness of mortality can lead to positive growth by encouraging individuals to live authentically, cultivate connections, and pursue lasting achievements. By confronting the inevitability of death, people are often motivated to live more fully and with greater purpose. Grief and bereavement, psychological processes. Grief is the emotional response to loss, particularly the loss of a loved one, while bereavement is the period of mourning and adjustment that follows. Grief is a natural but complex process that involves psychological, emotional, and sometimes even physical reactions. It is influenced by the nature of the loss, the individual's personality, cultural practices, and social support systems. Stages and types of grief. Kubler-Ross model. Psychiatrist Elizabeth K. Kubler-Ross proposed the well-known 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Although these stages don't necessarily occur in a linear fashion, they represent common emotional responses. Not everyone experiences each stage, but they provide a framework for understanding the range of emotions associated with grief. Complicated grief. While most people eventually adapt to loss, some experience complicated grief, a condition where the grieving process is prolonged and intense. Symptoms may include overwhelming sadness, persistent longing for the deceased, and difficulty moving forward in life. Complicated grief often requires therapeutic intervention, such as grief counseling or support groups. Anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief occurs when a loved one is facing a terminal illness. It allows individuals to begin processing loss before the actual event, which can sometimes make post-death grieving less overwhelming. However, anticipatory grief can also lead to exhaustion or emotional numbness once the loss occurs. Psychological processes in grief. Emotional reactions. Common emotions in grief include sadness, anger, guilt, and loneliness. The grieving person may experience intense waves of these emotions, which often come unpredictably. Grief is also a time of vulnerability, as people process both the loss itself and its impact on their sense of identity and stability. Cognitive processing. Grieving individuals often go through a period of meaning-making, where they try to understand the loss and its implications. This might involve questioning why the loss happened, reflecting on their relationship with the deceased, or finding ways to honor their memory. Some people find comfort in religious or spiritual beliefs, while others seek a sense of closure through personal rituals or creating legacies for their loved ones. Social support and community support from friends, family, or community members is essential for healthy grieving. Rituals like funerals, wakes, and memorial services provide structured ways to honor the deceased and help the grieving person feel connected to others who share their loss. Social support not only provides emotional comfort, but also encourages individuals to process their feelings and find new ways to relate to the deceased. The dual process model of coping with bereavement. The dual process model, developed by Margaret Strobe and Hank Schutt, suggests that grieving involves 2 types of coping: loss-oriented and restoration-oriented coping. Loss-oriented coping. This involves processing emotions directly related to the loss, such as crying, reminiscing, and expressing sorrow. Loss-oriented coping is essential for confronting the reality of the loss and allowing emotions to be felt and expressed. Restoration-oriented coping. Restoration-oriented coping focuses on rebuilding life after the loss. This can involve developing new routines, adjusting social roles, and finding ways to experience happiness again. Over time, individuals oscillate between these 2 types of coping, gradually finding a balance that allows them to adapt to life without their loved one. Growth through grief. Post-traumatic growth. While grief is deeply painful, some individuals experience post-traumatic growth after significant loss. This growth can take various forms, such as a stronger sense of resilience, a renewed appreciation for life, or a deepening of relationships with others. Post-traumatic growth does not diminish the pain of loss, but it reflects the potential for people to find new purpose or insight through their grieving process. Grieving is a journey with no set timeline, shaped by the unique relationship with the deceased, individual coping mechanisms, and social support. The psychological processes of grief and bereavement reflect both the pain of separation and the possibility of emotional and personal growth. The psychology of mortality encompasses a wide range of experiences and emotions, from fear of death to the ways in which death awareness influences our behavior and responses to loss. By examining these aspects, psychology provides insight into how individuals can cope with mortality, find meaning in life, and ultimately, come to terms with the human experience of death and loss.